G'day, Chris Conroy here. Thanks for your interest in the little Conroy Sparrow. Before I tell you a bit about the aeroplane, a little bit of background about me. I got involved with aviation when I was about 5, which was before the end of the Second World War, I'm sad to say, with models, which I've built right through my life and still do. And building those models has given me an appreciation for aerodynamics, for structures, for materials technology, for adhesive technology, which has stood me in excellent stead through my career in the fiberglass industry and also my career in the television industry, because it allowed me to understand the technologies that I was presenting to the viewers. The interest has gone on regardless of what I may have been doing professionally, and I've built 4 or 5 small aeroplanes, ultralights, from the mid-70s on. There was a little float plane which I first flew in 1980, which gave me an enormous amount of pleasure and fun around the Southport Gold Coast Broadwater for about 800 hours. But then in 1985 I decided that I would like an aeroplane that looked a bit more like an aeroplane, that gave me an enclosed cabin and which was capable of cross-country as well as slow-speed performance. So I designed the original Sparrow, and you're looking at her now. Aluminium tube, fabric, wood, fiberglass, steel, whatever other material was appropriate for whatever part of the structure was used. I virtually made the aeroplane up as I went along, and with a Rotax 503 it stalled at about 24 knots and cruised comfortably at 80 knots. So obviously the drag profile was just right. And then in 98 the legislation came out, amateur-built legislation, 19 series aircraft, and it made it possible for me to fulfil the number of requests that I'd had from people who wanted a kit of the Sparrow in its original form. It was far too complex for a kit, but in composite fiberglass, using the same layout, the same styling, the aircraft obviously was viable. So at the end of 1998 I embarked on a program to create the aeroplane in plug form, to make a set of production moulds from those plugs and to build kits in composite fiberglass. There are around about 150 moulds that go to make up the aeroplane, from the large piece represented by the fuselage right down to tiny little pieces. But I've made somewhere over 200 plugs and moulds in the process of generating the aeroplane, because it became quite clear as the project progressed that something that I'd made 6 months ago could be made better simply with a modification or a change. So the research and development process went on right through the generation of the tooling and of the first kits. 9 kits were sold before the first aircraft flew, which is a testament to its appearance and people's confidence in the design. There are currently 14 kits or 12 kits under construction and 2 aircraft flying. And the little aeroplane has fulfilled the promise that the original Sparrow came through with, by having a stall speed of 29 knots as a tandem 2-seater and a cruise speed of 110 knots at 3,000 revs with a 2.2 Jabiru in it. And its speed range of around 81 knots is greater than just about any other aircraft in its class in the world. And I think it's that and the styling and the durability and toughness of the little aeroplane that appeals to the market. I had a number of design parameters in mind when I designed the aeroplane. Apart from the Australian light wing, which was tube and fabric, there didn't seem to me to be any indigenous Australian designs on the market which fulfilled the needs of the bush operator or the property operator of a small aeroplane. So that was front of mind when I established the parameters of the design. That's why it became a tandem 2-seater, so that a property operator could see equally well out of both sides of the aircraft and both occupants had more room in the aircraft. That's why it was made from composite fiberglass, because once all of this is bonded together, the aircraft becomes a single unit. Damage is isolated to the area of damage rather than being transmitted throughout the rest of the airframe. And indeed, it's very difficult to damage the aeroplane, but if you do, it's a question of going down to the hardware store, buying a fiberglass kit, putting a patch in and going and flying. Also, the fact that it's manufactured out of moulds means that if somebody dings a tailplane or whatever, they simply ring me up, I send them another one, they plug it on and go fly. So there's a redundancy aspect to the aeroplane which makes it very, very easy to live with. The other aspect of a kit aeroplane which had always disturbed me was the fact that the average kit took somewhere between 1,500 and 3,500 hours to put together. I designed this aircraft so that it could be put together in around 350 to 400 hours, but still conform to the 51% rule. And it's approved by the Australian Ultralight Federation as conforming to the 51% rule. The fuselage comes looking as you see it here. The engine cowl is separate. That's set up when you fit your engine on. It comes with it as well. The landing gear is a single fiberglass leaf, which is virtually indestructible. It simply bolts up under the fuselage. The wing is made in modules, which slip over a 5-inch diameter aluminium spar that are simply epoxied and clamped onto the spar. They nest into each other. It's possible for one person to assemble an entire wing on a very simple wooden cable jig in one day. So none of the building processes are particularly onerous. All structural fiberglass work is done here at the factory, so that nobody needs to be worried about doing some aspect of the structural fiberglass work on the aeroplane and having it not come up to standard. It's all done in the aeroplane so that the structure is complete. You have to find a few little things inside the cabane there, the flap lever and a few things like that, but most of the processes in completing the airframe are involved in installing control systems, electrical systems, instruments, putting the seat on, upholstering, lining the inside of the cabins, and preparing and painting the airframe. So it's a relatively simple thing to do. As I was saying that 90% of the aeroplane takes 10% of the time. I think we've probably moved that quite considerably around in the opposite direction, because around about 75% of the structure of the aeroplane is complete when the kit arrives. There are new rules afoot in America and also, I'm told, in Australia, which will allow us to deliver aircraft ready to fly without certification process, but obviously with a process which establishes the design parameters and makes sure that they're met. And all in all, the future augurs extremely well for the Conroy Sparrow. It will settle into the world market and become a viable and valuable export for Australia, and also a wonderful little aeroplane for those who build and fly to own. Between Easter 2002 and November 2002, Kev Watson's 3458 Sparrow, which effectively is our development prototype, underwent quite a transformation. Flights up to that time had made it clear that some changes had to be made to make a good aeroplane into a truly superb one. We did quite a lot, and in fact the pictures you're looking at now are of the first flight late in November 2002. And as you can see, the graphics disappear here and there. The door on this side of the aeroplane, on the right hand side of the aeroplane, has been changed. The engine has been moved forward 9 inches. We've made changes to the rudder, tailplanes, elevators, ailerons and flaps. We've changed the linkages, we've changed the elevator circuit inside the fuselage. All of which is an upgrading process designed to make the aircraft fly better, particularly from the point of view of the harmony between the rudder and the ailerons, and also to take some slop out of the elevator circuit, which was caused by the fact that we used an aluminium pushrod for the elevator rather than a steel one, and in fact the replacement steel one turned out to be lighter than the aluminium one. I was very happy with the behaviour of the aeroplane. It became clear, came off the ground, that we had managed to transform it. The harmony between the rudder and ailerons is excellent. The flaps are extremely effective. I was able to, at about 1,000 feet, pull the throttle back, pull on full flap, and then advance power until I had the aircraft flying level. And with the Jabiru 2.2, I saw 35 knots straight and level at 2,500 revs, at which we estimate the engine was developing about 25 to 30 horsepower. So the aeroplane does have true style qualities. I haven't yet tried a maximum performance short field landing. I'm still in the process of calibrating its flight performance, but we expect to get truly spectacular short field performance, and we have confirmed a cruise of just over 100 knots and a stall of just under 30 knots. Enjoy the footage of the Sparrow flight. The development of a product such as this consumes enormous amounts of time, as I've discovered over the last 6 years or so, but it's also conducted on a number of different levels. Obviously, the styling of the aircraft is of paramount importance. It has to look attractive. And fiberglass allows you to incorporate contours into the airframe that aren't available or aren't economically available with metal or with timber. So I've gone to a lot of trouble to make sure that this aircraft is styled as attractively as it possibly can, whilst taking into account all of the other dynamics of the design. Now, the main area in which my research and development has headed has been in the area of engineering of the laminates. The aircraft is made from vinyl ester resin, and I've developed techniques not only for actually making the components, but also for incorporating adhesives, the way in which the airframe goes together, that allows me to come up with an airframe weight of the side-by-side version of the aircraft of around about 200 kilos, less of course engine instruments and other accessories. Now, that research and development has taken place mainly with the tandem version of the Sparrow, and the genesis of that aircraft was the single seat aluminium tube and fiberglass and timber Sparrow, which I first designed and built back in 1985. So the aircraft effectively had the same dimensions and the same sizes, etc., as the original single-seater. The main seat was moved forward, the aft seat was moved slightly back, centre of gravity considerations were taken into account, and the aircraft flies superbly well. Now, whilst there is a a demand for the tandem version, the market obviously is keener on a side-by-side version. So 2.5 years ago, I embarked on the modification of that tandem version of the aircraft into the side-by-side version of the Sparrow, which I call the Sparrow Hawk. This particular model is quarter scale, and I built it a year or so ago in order to look a little more easily at the way in which everything went together. I did a lot of research on various side-by-side aircraft that are on the market, and it became clear that the width of the cabin was extremely important. So the width of this cabin at your elbows is 46 inches, which is about 1.12 metres, and which allows you an enormous amount of elbow room and space and a feeling of airiness and space inside the cabin. In fact, it's 7 inches wider in the cabin than a Cessna 172. Now that was achieved not only by widening the fuselage, but also by incorporating a bulge in the door and moulding a bulge, or a bubble if you like, into the cabin windows. That gives you, as I said, an enormous amount of space. On top of that, I incorporated armrests into the doors, and they align with the armrest in the centre between the seats, which you're looking at now. It will be a single stick with either a Y yoke or just a plain single stick, so that either person can fly, which makes the control system, etc., and its installation very easy. And of course that's a consideration as far as a kit is concerned, because the kit builder doesn't want to have to mess about with too much inside the cabin. So that works extremely well. The wings, the flaps, the ailerons, tailplanes, elevators, rudder, tail wheel unit, landing gear unit, and a couple of other smaller components are common to both aircraft, which of course is the way to go when you're in production with something like this. The wings alone, the spar alone, which is a 5-inch diameter aluminium spar, checks out at 8 Gs on paper. The overall load factor of the airframe we estimate at around about 8 to 8.5 Gs. So it's extremely strong for its weight, and it's extremely strong for this particular class of aircraft. Now, I'm not suggesting it's aerobatic, because the rules don't let you to fly aerobatically, but it's an aircraft that you can rely on to be as strong as it can possibly be within the weight limit and still give you a substantial useful load. The area of the fuselage from the firewall back to the back of the doors is laminated using a carbon fibre Kevlar weave, which with the internal structure makes that part of the aircraft pretty well the equivalent of a Formula One driver capsule, and we all know how much stress and strain they will take. The fuel tank fits under the seat, and it is a structural part of the aircraft, as is the seat unit itself. And as you can see, the seat unit is quite complex in its shape. That complexity gives it an enormous amount of stiffness and strength, so the cabin area of the aircraft will be truly enormously strong. The aircraft will accept a variety of engines. The two that are flying have a 4-cylinder and a 6-cylinder Jabiru installed. They will accept any of the Rotax large 2-stroke or 4-stroke engines. It's ideal for a Subaru or a Volkswagen installation, and it would also accept, with a slight modification to the engine cowl, the small Continental or Lycoming engines. So that gives you a tremendous amount of leeway as far as your power plant selection is concerned. The engine cowl is quite cavernous and will accept all of the engines that I've mentioned. We will have versions of the engine cowl to fit whatever engine the aircraft will accept. In fact, one or two of my builders, my kit builders with the tandem aircraft, are modifying Suzuki and Mazda car engines for the aircraft. Now, as I said, wings, tail unit, landing gear, etc. are common to both aircraft. We have those built for the first of the side-by-side version of the Sparrow Hawk. The fuselage plug you're looking at now is at an advanced stage of construction, and in fact within a very short time we'll take the mould from it and build the first aircraft. Now, I'm talking early in December 2004. I expect to fly the first version by about mid-February 2005. At this stage, projected kit price is an industry-leading $34,000. It can be had in either nose wheel or tail dragger form. I've designed and made a number of accessories for the aircraft, among them a carbon fibre tail wheel unit, which is extremely light and very strong, incorporates ball bearings, and will certainly do the job of a tail wheel which really does experience quite a lot of stress and strain extremely well. Now, based on calibration test flying of the Sparrow XC, we expect a stall between 33 and 34 knots. That's clean, with flaps around about 26 to 28 knots. We expect a cruise of 100 knots, a genuine 100 knots, and we've checked that a number of times with the XC, and an endurance of 6 hours plus reserve at around about 100 knots. Now, that is with internal fuel, 90 litres of internal fuel, but that fuel can be extended by either installing wing tanks or an underbelly cargo pod, and that can vastly extend and expand the range. The other aspect of the aircraft which is unusual is that it has a cavernous luggage compartment behind the seats. That's almost as big as a ute, and in fact behind the cabin window, the cabin door on the starboard side, there is an extremely large cargo door incorporated in the side of the fuselage, which of course is lockable. So there it is, the Conroy Sparrow Hawk is set to make big inroads into the world light sport aircraft market in 2005 and beyond, and we look forward to your inquiries as far as the kit or a finished flying aircraft is concerned.